Welcome everyone, StealthyShiroean here, and today I'm bringing you my 2023 year-end review of Humble Choice. For those who weren't here last year for when I did this for the first time, I use this as a way to look back at the games from the bundles that I played, past the reviews, and how my thoughts of them have changed. Then we take a look at the months and how their different scoring stack up to each other for deciding which was the best month. Sort of. But I'll explain that in a bit. Before we get too far into things though, I want to say thank you for all the continued support. The channel has now grown past 600 people, and while that is a relatively small channel, I still can't believe it. It's amazing that there are that many people who care to listen to what I have to say about games, as well as those who stop by and aren't subscribed. And I'm also glad that it happens to help some of you as well. As I always say, your continued support with watching my content, liking it, and especially leaving comments is all very motivating. These are the things that push me to try and get the monthly reviews done in a timely manner, even when I might not feel like it. So, thank you. Anyway, let's take a look at the games I've played. Again, these are only the games I played from choice, past the review time of 1 hour. Last year's review, I had said that I wanted to try and play at least one game past the review time from each month, and, well, that didn't quite happen. I did a lot better this time around though. A bit better. I guess it's not so impressive when I actually take a look. Last year, I tackled 10 games out of 98 total, and this year I did a whopping 12 games out of 98. There were 2 extra in February in case anyone was checking my math. However, this time, instead of missing out on games from 6 months, I only missed 3. If you allow the last game in December, that is, which I'm definitely counting that. To keep consistent with last year's format, out of the 98 games doled out this year, 19 of those I categorized as must-plays, which is actually 3 less than last year. Surprisingly, this doesn't affect the average negatively, as we'll see in a moment. However, from these 19, I only played 5 of them. As I said last year, this doesn't really mean anything, just that I don't have all the time in the world. Most of the games I did play were either chosen because they were shorter so I could get through them faster, or they were games I played with someone else. Alright, before I get back to more numbers, let's talk about what I did play from this past year's bundles, and what I still think of them. And be sure to let me know what you got around to playing, and your thoughts in the comments below. Putting just under 4.5 hours into Ollie Ollie World, I finally decided to put the game down. It's a fun game, don't get me wrong, but it also becomes incredibly frustrating. Each new stage introduces the player to new mechanics to further tweak their tricks in order to maximize the amount of points earned each level. Not to mention, the levels themselves increase in difficulty really quick after the first stage. I found myself enjoying when I would complete a difficult section requiring quick button presses and flicks of the analog sticks, but at the same time I found myself completely frustrated with it all as well. It became really apparent that this game required much quicker reflexes than what I currently have, and I didn't have any more interest in putting in the time to develop them. I still say this is a strong recommendation from before because it is worth trying out, but just be warned about the difficulty spike later on. Shady Part of Me was a game I actually finished this year with a grand total of just under 6 hours. I gave this one a strong recommendation at the time, mainly for the game's innovative gameplay and the appropriate difficulty level for my own skill with these types of games. And in that sense, the game definitely delivered. The different acts introduced new elements to the puzzle which I thought were clever and made the puzzle solving a little different each time. While I didn't find all the collectibles, they were a nice additional challenge for when I did want to figure out how to get them. I'd say the story is what really dragged this game down for me with the abstract nature of the storytelling. If you're going into this for a story and a decent puzzler, then this would be more of a weak recommendation for me now. I put just under 4 hours into Rogue Lords in total. I really wanted to like this game because I thought the devil mechanic and the setting itself was interesting. However, I just couldn't get into it. At least not at the time that I played it. I can't remember why, but judging from my sparse notes, I'd say it was largely because you don't have much control over your builds. You start with the same minions that start with the same attacks, so the beginning of each run always felt dragged down. And the roguelite nature of the game made it so you might get unlucky with building out the skills of your party. All that said, I think I'd still like to go back to this and give it another shot. At the time of the review, this was given a strong recommendation, but I'd probably consider it a weak recommendation now. Operation Tango really is a fun co-op game. That said, my wife and I only put 3 hours into it. I'm not really sure why, but now I want to get back into this and finish it. Probably something else came along and we played that instead. I really would recommend this for any looking for a fun co-op experience though. It still sits as a must-play for me if you have someone to play with you, of course. Grime was another game I just couldn't get into, but completely opposite reasons from Rogue Lords. Grime actually was fun from a gameplay perspective, and it seemed to be a decent Metroidvania. In fact, I was planning to do a review of the game, but tapped out just after 3.5 hours. I just couldn't get into the setting at all. Everything felt too abstract to me to really care about or even understand it. So I set it aside. Unlike Rogue Lords, I'm not really sure I'd come back to this over my many other Metroidvanias I have lying around. So I'd bump this down to a weak recommendation now. Playing more Remnant from the Ashes was never even a question for me. I played a lot before the bundle, and I've played a lot since. Currently, a buddy and I are finally tackling that Nightmare run. Originally, I owned the game off of Epic, and there it tells me I put about 170 hours into the game. So yeah, it's still a must-play. I'd say even people who aren't fans of Souls-like, as this is a perfect gateway game into the genre. Since August, I put about 12.5 hours into Chivalry 2, which might not sound like a lot given the kind of game that it is. I still plan on putting in several more hours, but I usually only play this with a friend. And it's still a lot of fun, even though I'm no good at it. They recently put out a new update which added a new map, so for any interested in jumping in to see what it's all about, then now's as good a time as any. This one still holds at a must-play for me. I also got around to playing Road 96 and Trek to Yomi from the August bundle. They were both good games in their own right, and I would still say they set at a strong recommendation. I actually reviewed both of these games on the channel, so for the sake of brevity, if you'd like to hear my full thoughts on them, then check out the links in the description or the cards on the side. So far, I put just under 30 hours with Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, playing co-op with my wife, and we still haven't finished it quite yet. And while it's definitely been enjoyable and the gameplay is fun, it's also been a bit taxing. As much as the game likes to masquerade with its fantasy set dressing, it's still a Borderlands game through and through. I mean, I didn't expect it not to be, but I did wish there was a bit more innovation with this spin-off title. And most of the humor has been a miss for me if I'm being honest. That said, if you're not fatigued with the franchise or just want a fun multiplayer game, then I'd still play this. I bumped this down from a must-play to just a strong recommendation though, but that solely has to do with my burnout with the franchise being so fresh in my mind. I wasn't sure if I would like a game like House of Ashes, but I did enjoy it for the most part. Granted, I'm not really referring to the gameplay, but the story and setting. Also, I did play this with my brother, so it's easier being invested when someone else is as well. But yeah, I really did like the story and felt that it was unique. I really didn't see the twist coming with the creatures in the end, and I actually thought it was clever. The gameplay, on the other hand, is not good. And the camera is horrendous at times. I also really hated that I wouldn't always know the difference between a QuickTime event and a section where you need to hit the beats at the proper moment, which actually led to an unnecessary character death, which I'm still bitter about. Oh, and we weren't a fan on how they did online multiplayer where the other player couldn't see what the other one did, so it led to situations where we didn't really know some of the background of events for characters. I mean, I understand why this was done, but I wish they had the option to not do this since couch co-op play is obviously not like this. This still stands at a strong recommendation though. Okay, I technically didn't play more of Nobody Saves the World this month, but I had played and beat the game prior to it being given away in choice, so I'm gonna count this. The exploration, different forms, and skill combinations were all fun, but if you want to hear my full thoughts on it, then check out my review. And that's what I played past the review times. Looking back, it was only April, July, and November that I missed playing any extra on the games from those months. I'm not sure about any of the games from April or July, but I definitely plan on doing a review for Legend of Tianding from November sometime, and perhaps Proteus as well. As far as me trying to hit that one choice game a month, well, there's always next year. Usually my New Year's resolutions are doomed to end up on the next year's resolutions anyway, so I may as well stick with tradition. So now we're at what was the best bundle of the year. To reiterate what I said last year, my opinions are completely subjective to the month I'm playing, so I don't ever compare previous months to determine how I feel about a current month's set of games. So if a Boomer Shooter is released in April, but then in August we get another one, I'm usually not basing it off that unless it comes into my head when playing it. More than likely, I'm very much just saying my thoughts on how I felt playing the game for the hour I spent with it. I even try not to watch any trailers or read anything about the games beforehand if I don't know anything about them, so I can try to provide a consistent and honest opinion about each game. But this can sometimes be contradictory to what I may have said about a similar title previously. With the caveat out of the way, let's use the same scoring system to apply some numbers and visualization. And the scoring is as follows: 3 points for must plays, 2 for strong recommendations, 1 for weak recommendations, and 0 for don't bother with titles. So the month scores are now displayed on screen. From this, we could see that February surges ahead as a clear winner this year. I was a bit surprised that it was so high, and after some investigation, I realized that 2 extra games were given that month, being Fallout 1 and The Witcher Enhanced Edition. Well, I scored the original Witcher a don't bother with because of its jank, so that doesn't even count towards the score. And Fallout 1 I only gave a weak recommendation. So I'll scratch that out so that all the months now accurately represent the 8 main games of each bundle, and yeah, February still takes the lead with 18 points. And it manages to do so because of the 3 must-play titles and 4 strong recommendations. Heck, even if I take in my new thoughts on Shady Part of Me, February still stands at 17 points. So with this scoring, it is the unequivocal best bundle of the year, and is actually higher than any of the months scored last year. However, while I don't think there are any months that stand out in front of February, I think there are more than a few games from other months that I'd rather play over the games in the February bundle. So that feeling did make it a little hard to give it too much praise. I'd also like to point out that this year's average was 13.6, and that is using February's adjusted score without the extra games. Actually, it was 13.58 to be more precise, which is just a hair over 2022's average of 13.5. This means that only half of the months managed to stay above the average this year compared to 8 last year. I think February really skewed that figure though, so it probably is about the same as it was last year, just based solely off the scoring. Which is based on my own opinion, mind you. But that wraps up my thoughts on this year's bundles. Overall, I'm still pretty happy with the year, and I feel we got some good ones. Do you agree with my thoughts? What month or months were your favorite? And what did you get around to playing this year? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. I hope this video helped you in some small way, and if it did, then please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, or whatever it is you feel like doing. Thanks for watching, and have a Happy New Year.